Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is the 2021 Student Steel Bridge Competition Compete from Campus Judges Training. Today is February 10th, 2021. My name is Christy Sattler, and I am the Senior Engineer for University Relations at AISC. We are glad that you are able to join us today as we provide an overview of the judging responsibilities and expectations for this year's competition. Before we begin, I want to thank all of you who have graciously volunteered your time to serve as a judge for the SSBC Compete from Campus. Many of AISC's initiatives and programs have been built upon the help from our dedicated volunteers, and that is especially true for the Student Steel Bridge competition. Things look a little bit different this year with students competing from their local campus rather than at one of our 18 regional events. We really appreciate your involvement this year as it will allow the students to still compete, albeit in a different format. Our audience today is comprised of volunteers with a variety of experiences. Some of you may have served as a regional head judge in the past and are very experienced with the competition. Others of you may be first-time judges, and even others may fall somewhere in between. Regardless of your previous experience, our goal today is to give you an overview of what to expect this year, as it is different than a typical year. I will first show you which sources of information will be the most beneficial to you. Then I will turn it over to our guest speakers, who are the current and future national head judges. They will start with a broad overview of the competition events, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper into the nuances of this year's competition. And then we'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions. I have a few announcements before we jump into everything. First, you'll notice that your microphone and camera are off. If you have any questions during the presentation, just write them in the chat box on the bottom of your screen. We will answer questions that come in through the chat at the end of the presentation, but we do encourage you to submit your questions along the way. If you have a question about something specific on a slide, it's helpful to include the slide number. And please know that when you chat the group, it will be seen by everyone. So if you want to ask a question anonymously, you can message Maria Manukin directly. You'll see her name in the chat feature dropdown. If you experience any technical difficulties, you can send a private chat to Philip McConnell, and he will do his best to assist you. And finally, this webinar is being recorded. We will post the recording to our website for your future reference, and you can find that at aisc.org/SSBC webinars. We house all of the relevant SSBC documents on our website at aisc.org/SSBC. This is where we post everything that's SSBC related. Things like program announcements, the official rules and clarifications, resources for teams, and information for volunteers. There is a specific page dedicated to the SSBC Compete from Campus. You can use the link aisc.org/SSBC Compete from Campus to access the page directly. There you will find links to download all of the documents that we will discuss today, as well as more information about this competition option. The two most important documents that you will need to reference are the official rules pictured on the left and the Compete from Campus guidelines pictured on the right. Some of the official rules on the left-hand document have been adjusted to ensure as much consistency as possible between the teams taking part in the Compete from Campus competition. The Compete from Campus guidelines help clarify those things. You will need to reference both of these documents. Throughout the presentation, you will hear some specific rule numbers get referenced. Any specific rule numbers will be found in the official rules document. A couple other documents that will be referenced today. First, there is the judging form. We'll talk more specifically about this later, but you can download the PDF directly from that Compete from Campus page. And there is also a preparation checklist that we provided to teams as they gather the necessary materials and equipment for the day of their competition. And one last thing I will mention is that you can also join our SSBC email list. We send regular email updates with program announcements and other up-to-date information. There's a sidebar on our website with a link to request email updates. Simply click that link and complete the short form to join our list. And now I would like to turn it over to our two speakers. Today I am joined by John Perucchi, who is currently the national head judge. He got involved with the SSBC in 1992, and he has served as the national head judge since 1995. And we also have Javier Moncada, who will transition into the national head judge role starting in the 2022 to 2023 competition season. Javier has been involved at the regional level for 8 years and has served as the head judge for the Pacific Northwest region since 2014. He was also involved for 4 years as a student participant. Both of these gentlemen are very familiar with the SSBC and will be great resources for you as you prepare for this year's competition. And at this point, Javier, I will turn things over to you.
Thank you, Christy. Welcome, everybody. Just wanted to say thank you for your time and energy and continuing to make SteelBridge a success for all the students. Safety is one of the most important aspects of SteelBridge. We're working with steel and weights. So students should be wearing safety gear at all times during the construction section. Stick to the rules. That's why we have them. Engage students and be respectful to them. They've put a lot of energy and time and dedication into their steel bridges. If you look over section 1, there's a very clear mission and vision, and we're here to empower students to acquire and demonstrate the value and knowledge and skills that they will use as future professionals in the structural steel design and construction community. And have fun. You know, this is a lot of fun, and so please have fun with it. Next slide, please. There's a lot of planning goes into the competition day, and section 0, or not section 0, but I'll say a 0 is to check your taping plan after the students have laid it out. They're responsible for laying it out, but check the staging yard, the construction zone, the river, and the transportation zone. And then we'll get into a little bit more discussions about the pre-construction, construction, post-construction. I'll touch on aesthetics, and we'll go over loading and weighing as well. Next slide, please. If at any point you deem the bridge is unsafe, you can stop construction. So see section 5. Section 9.4, 9.5 discuss safety of connections, as well as section 10.2, 10.3 during construction, and section 11.2 regarding unsafe loading practices. This is just a photograph of a typical staging yard that's got equipment and safety gear. Obviously, the booths won't be there before construction. Next slide. Okay, so this is a good example of a staging area where members and tools and nuts and bolts have been separated. This will be your first area that you're doing actual judging. You want to check for sizes and weights of members, finalize exactly how many builders will be building the bridge. See section 8.2 for those violations. Next section, next slide. Once you're done with the pre-construction checks, you'll move into construction. So where you track the time it takes to build the bridge. You'll be tracking accidents. See section 10.4 for accidents. This is just a photograph of a bridge being built over the river area, and you can see how cautiously the builders are not trying to touch the tape and stay out of the designated river area while they stand in the construction zone area. Okay, next slide, please. After construction, you'll move into post-construction. You'll have your tape measures, your rulers, and your levels, and any handmade templates that you may have, and you're checking for dimensional requirements and also for any connection violations. See section 9.3. You'll also have students will have an opportunity to make any corrections if needed. See section 9.4. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's not our responsibility to do aesthetics this year as opposed to previous years. So this is just a kind of a one-off, but just a friendly reminder to after post-construction, there's some aesthetic requirements that the students are responsible for. So just a friendly reminder of that. And some photographs that should be taken after post-construction before loading. Next slide. Okay, then comes what a lot of people think is the most exciting part of the bridge competition. It's the loading. We'll see a 50-pound lateral load, see section 11.4, 2,500 pounds in section of vertical loading in section 11.5. And then after the loading, you'll move into the weight section and the scales. Next slide. Now John will take over and go into more detail. Thank you.
Thanks, Javier, and welcome everyone, and thank you for your support of this competition. We have provided a list of basic items that you will need to judge this competition. I'm not going to cover every item other than to say that the loading weight can be any material or combination of materials, and that the bearing plates we show are only required if the bridge will be loaded on a compressible surface. Slide. Before the competition, you want to check with the host on templates, plumb bobs, and any other equipment you may be needed. You want to confirm location and time. And if the competition is going to be outdoors, you want to make sure that they have an alternative date in mind in case of inclement weather. Slide. Make sure that you and other judges have read the SSVC rules and the Compete from Campus guide before the competition. Slide. This is your captain's meeting. You want to meet before the competition. You want the captain to try to have all questions referred to a rule number. And you're going to want to refer to clarifications before answering a rule question. Let the team know that this will be the only time that questions will be answered. They cannot ask or answer questions during the competition. This meeting can happen at any time before the team starts staging their bridge. Please do not pre-approve a design or a construction sequence. And we'll provide you a link to the clarifications later in this presentation. And remember to never give any advice. Slide. During a competition, you only talk to the team captain. And again, do not answer any process questions after meeting with the captain at the captain's meeting. Slide. This layout locates what edge of the tape measurements are taken to. Depending on how well the tape is sticking to the floor, you may want to consider adding some clear tape over the footers and the riverbank to prevent rolling up of the tape. Note the highlighted tape in the detail is needed to check Rule 9.3.7. Slide. Before we get started, remember that teams have practiced many times. However, you must ensure that the team understands that they only have one judged attempt. They are not allowed to run multiple times and choose the best outcome. We're now going to review the different phases of the competition: pre-construction, construction, post-construction, loading, and weight. Each phase has its own data entry form. It would be a good idea to print copies of these to be used during judging. At the end of the competition, this data will have to be entered into the PDF version for submission to AISC. Use these forms as a checklist to verify that each rule has been inspected, and then check the rule verified box. Remember that each measurement is not absolute, but the rule reflects a maximum and/or a minimum envelope requirement that parts of the bridge or the bridge itself must satisfy. So if they do exceed this range, they should be penalized. We'll start with pre-construction. This review happens before time construction begins. All members, fasteners, and tools are laid out in the staging yards so that a judge can check these items for compliance. Note that new for this year, members can only start in the right staging yard. You are allowed to pick up any item to perform these checks. The rule numbers are listed for you to reference in the SSBC rulebook. Remember that teams cannot fix a penalty if discovered during inspection. Legal tools must be removed from the site. When complete with your checks, have the team captain sign the sheet before moving on. Slide. Checking members will be a little hard if you do not happen to have the box we describe in Rule 8.2.2.2. Here we have shown an alternative method that could be used when checking the member size. You can attach tape at a 90-degree intersection of two walls or a wall and a floor and measure off these surfaces. Note that the member can be orientated in any way to satisfy the rule. Slide. This is the construction phase, and it is the kinetic portion of the competition. We list a number of prohibited actions, and you should review them. If they are violated, then you will stop the clock, explain why they cannot do that, return builders and conditions back to when the clock was stopped, and then restart. If you're not sure of an action, then go ahead and stop time construction and review the issue. Of these, I'd like to highlight the following rules. 10.3.7, you want to make sure that a builder is only carrying one member at a time. 10.3.8, builders cannot use the bridge, a member, or a tool for support. However, they can use the bridge for support if they have both knees or one knee and at least 1 foot flat on the floor, or at least 1 foot flat on the floor. And Rule 10.3.9, a builder cannot provide support or balance for another builder. If a team cannot complete the bridge without violating one of the rules in the top box, then they are ineligible to continue. During construction, you'll be watching for accidents per Rules 10.4.1, 10.4.2, and 10.4.3. Time does not stop when an accident happens. You will call out all accidents as they occur so the team knows it happened. Touching the tape is considered in the river or out of bounds. Please note that there's not a vertical component to the tape line. Do not warn of a possible action like a shoe getting close to the line. As an example, an item dropped in water. If no builder is actively retrieving this dropped item, then keep calling out the penalty until a builder retrieves the item. Each call is a new penalty. Any builder can receive the dropped item, and there is no penalty for stepping into the water or out of bounds to retrieve that item. For instance, a drop in a cup full of fasteners. You want to stop time and count. Each item that touches the floor is an individual penalty. And a builder must retrieve an item no matter where it goes. You can go outside the bounds of the construction site, they must go out and get it. If you have more than one judge, then make sure only one judge records the called out penalties. Rule 10.4 also prohibits a builder from deliberately causing an accident to construct the bridge. As an example, a builder cannot stand in the water or violate the support rules I mentioned above to install a member or make a connection. You will want to make sure to review section 10.9 finish, as it identifies the conditions that must be satisfied before construction is complete. There are time limits allowed for construction, so review rules 10.7 and 10.8 for this information. And when complete, enter the clock time on this form. Time is important, and this can all happen pretty fast, so missing something is possible even with experienced judges. When construction is complete, have the team captain sign the sheet before moving on. Slide. This is the post-construction phase. These checks happen after the team has completed the construction of the bridge. There are some measurements that use the floor, so you want to make sure that the surface is as flat as possible. If there is a concern, then use a string line between the footers to ensure an accurate measurement. Remember, if the bridge falls outside the measurement envelope, then it should be penalized. You can touch fasteners to ensure they are satisfying Rule 9.4.4, but do not turn the bolt or the nut when checking. When complete with your inspection, make sure the team captain signs a sheet before moving on. Slide. This is just a guide on the possible connections that would be needed to satisfy Rule 9.4. This is just for your use only and is not part of the official rules. So if there is an issue, please use the written text for guidance. Slide. You will have to make this template in order to check Rule 9.3.8. Stiff cardboard or thin plywood would work. This template would have to slide the full length of the bridge to check for compliance of this rule. Slide. After post-construction checks are complete, the following photos will have to be taken by the team before loading checks are performed. If a team cannot complete construction of the bridge for any reason, then have the team try and finish putting the bridge together and have these pictures taken. Slide. On this form, you will enter the results of the lateral and vertical test and the weight of the bridge. For the compete from campus competition, the die roll has already been established as 2. For the lateral test, teams will have to restrain lateral movement and cannot hold down a bridge. You will need to use a plumb bob and a 1-inch radius target to monitor that the bridge does not sway more than the 1-inch maximum when loaded. You will enter pass or fail depending on the outcome. Vertical testing. Up until now, the rules have been the same as past years for construction and lateral testing. This year, for safety reasons, and also recognizing that each school would be using a different method to measure deflection, we decided to not have a judge record the amount of deflection during vertical loading. Each method would have had varying degrees of accuracy, and this would have made the comparison of this data for ranking teams in a region impossible. However, there is still a maximum deflection limit of 3 inches. This is now a pass-fail test. The bridge has passed if it holds 2,500 pounds and does not deflect more than 3 inches. Also, for safety reasons, we are not directly monitoring sway, but the bridge should observe the performance of the bridge during loading and stop if the bridge is deforming or swaying in an unsafe manner. Note that if the bridge fails when unloading, it has not passed the vertical load test. There is only one try for the lateral load test. Any type of combination of weights will work, and you want to confirm that the weight that has been applied is correct. Slide. This shows an example of a lateral setup. Note the two builders restraining the lateral movement and that they are not touching the bridge. Teams can use any method to hold the bridge in place. Feet or some type of tool, as shown, would work. This also shows a stand that is being used to apply the lateral load. A spring scale could also be used to apply this 50-pound load. Remember, again, that the team only has one try for the lateral test. Slide. This sketch is found in the rules, and we have added the required measurements. It gives you the location of the decking, the 75-pound load, location of the sway point, where to restrain lateral movement, and where to apply the 50-pound lateral load. Slide. This gives you a view of how safety supports might be used. You want to try to support under the 4 corners of the decking. We show plastic buckets, but you could use cinder blocks or any other method to catch the decking in the event of a collapse. Slide. This sketch is found in the rules, and we've added the required measurements. It gives you the location of the decking, where and how much to load the decking, and location of the points where you will monitor the maximum deflection. As I mentioned earlier, sway will not be checked with the target during vertical loading. Slide. Here we show a method that could be used to monitor maximum deflection. The other end of the string would be tied onto the bridge at both deflection points. When the washer touches the ground, the bridge loading will be stopped. However, do not use this as a measurement of sway. This is just an example, and you can use any method that works for you. Slide. Weighing of the bridge. It's ideal to have 4 scales, but not necessary. If there's only one scale, the weight of the individual members, loose bolts, and nuts can be combined. And try to weigh the bridge, even if the bridge cannot finish construction or loading. Slide. Appeals. There is an appeals process for unresolved issues. You want to refer to the Compete from Campus guidelines. Filing an appeal is the responsibility of the school. The team captain must advise you, the judge, by the end of the competition of any issue that may be appealed. Try to take pictures of the issue for further review, and you may be contacted by the Rules Committee for clarification. Remember, only talk to the team captain about this issue, and you can try to let the captain know how and or why you made your ruling. Other than that, let the team file the appeal, and the Rules Committee will make a determination. Slide. This is a screenshot of the AIC webpage that will give you direction on where to download the rules and the Compete from Campus guide, and how to see current clarifications and ask a rules clarification question. Slide. Wrapping up, remember to take your time. Do not amend the rule, and that a measurement that exceeds the range must be penalized, and that teams have only one judged attempt. And safety is very important, and you want to try and keep it fun. If you do have a question on a rule, then use the Ask for a Clarification tab, and we will post an answer. Hope this information has helped, and please do not hesitate to contact me directly before your competition with any questions that you may have. Again, thank you for your time and support of this competition. And Christy, back to you.
Okay, thank you, John, and thank you, Javier. So at this point, with the time that we have left, we'll just open it up for questions. So I'll remind the audience that you can submit a question through the chat window, and we will answer those as time allows. So the first question is, can you give a summary of the Compete from Campus option? And I'll go ahead and take that question. So just as a reminder,
Okay.
we are not holding any in-person events at the regional level or the national finals level this year. And in lieu of that, we are offering this Compete from Campus option. So the teams are given the opportunity to compete from their own campus. And so they'll still construct the bridge and load test the bridge like they would at a regional event. And then they will submit videos of the competition to AISC for review. So that's what this Compete from Campus option is all about. So again, they'll compete by a video submission. So it's a little bit different than what we normally do in a traditional year, but it was kind of the alternative that we came up with, just to let the teams compete, assuming it's safe to do so. We do expect that the teams follow, local and campus guidelines as far as health and safety. And then again, all the details for this option can be found in those Compete from Campus guidelines. So the rules that have been amended to make that happen are in that guideline document. Let's see. So the next question, John, I'm going to go to slide 22. So the question is, does a violation occur when a builder touches the line or when they cross the line? Can you give some clarification there?
It only happens when they actually touch the line. There is no vertical component to any of these tape lines. So they can hover over the top of the line as long as the shoe or any other item does not touch over the line.
All right. And then when you talked about dropping items, is the act of retrieving an item dropped in the river an additional violation to the dropped item itself? How does that work?
No, it's not. No, if they drop, say, a nut in the water, the violation is the nut in the water. Stepping in the water to retrieve it is not.
Great. The next question is a coin toss still being used to determine the east end of the bridge, as we've done in the past?
Yes.
Next question is, how many judges are you recommending that we have? And we have the minimum is 1, but is there a recommendation for what's the ideal?
I would say, I think 3 would be ideal if you could get 3. It gives you an opportunity with more eyes looking at what's happening. Certainly one judge could do this. You're only doing one bridge, but I would think 3 would be ideal.
And then following up to that question, I'll go ahead and take this one. Does a school have to have a judge or a video or both? And the answer is both. So every team is required to have at least one head judge on campus to judge the event. And they're also required to submit video footage of the construction event, as well as the vertical and the lateral load testing event. And then after completion of that, the judging form will be completed and submitted as a PDF. So the team does have to have both a judge and submit the video. It's not an either or. Let's see. Next question is, how are you providing consistency in loading these bridges? For example, loading procedures to ensure all competitors are doing things the same. So obviously it's a little bit different since we don't have regional events, but John, can you kind of comment on our best attempt to make it consistent across the schools?
All right. Well, the loading rules, you're still loading 2,500 pounds. The judge has to confirm that's what we are loading. And since we're not really measuring deflection, the only consistency would be is that we require the bridges to be loaded with 2,500 pounds and not deflect more than 3 inches. And also, as a judge has to monitor sway. And if it gets to a dangerous condition, then you would stop the competition. There really isn't a measurement that we're taking during vertical loading.
Okay. Next question, I'm going to jump back to this taping plan because I think that shows this the most clearly. The question is, what constitutes being in a particular zone? For instance, if a builder's feet are in the construction zone, but their hands are touching the staging yard, which zone are they in?
It's where their feet, it's where they're touching the ground.
Okay.
As I said, there's no vertical component, so if you're looking at the left-hand side of that picture, where the construction zone is butted right up to the staging yard, they can be standing in the construction yard or the staging yard at any given time. It doesn't make a difference. The only word it does become a difference is that they cannot have any part of their body touching the transportation zone on the right-hand side in order to construct the bridge. So it's where your feet are.
Okay. And then I'm going to jump to slide 28 about the template. So John, can you clarify just a little bit about using this template? Is it meant to be for spot checking, or do you have to drag the whole template across the length of the bridge?
No, it has to be dragged across the whole length of the bridge. It does a number of things. It locates the deck support at the very bottom in those rabbets. The deck support itself has to fall within that range. And it also ties in the deck support to any interference above it. So if you got a truss under bridge, you're just going to slide this along the rails at the top to make sure it stays within those rabbets. If you have a truss the way we show there, you want to make sure it doesn't touch anything as you're moving down through it. You can move this template sideways in that 2-inch wide rabbet in order to so that you're not going to be hitting an obstruction. So if you have a bolt head sticking into this and you can slide the template over to get around it and still stay on the deck support, that's fine. But it is slid along the whole length of the bridge from end to end.
Okay. Great, thanks for the clarification there. The next question is, will there only be one competition or will these be evaluated per region and then for nationals? And I can,
Well, I
go ahead
think
and
right
take that.
now
Go ahead, John.
why don't you take that one? Yeah.
I'm going to take that. So there will be regional events like we typically do. So the collection of schools will be divided into different regions, and then the top qualifiers will advance to a national finals, where they will compete again from their own campus in a very similar format with a different die roll. So they'll have to do the construction portion again and load test their bridge, and then submit their judging form and videos for that attempt to compete at the national final level. Let's see, the next question is, how are students expected to take an overhead photo of the bridge as previously mentioned? Are students expected to have a ladder, or can they hold a camera above their head at a downward angle?
I would say use the most convenient method you have. If you can stand on a chair safely, whatever method is safe for you, there is no specific requirement for that. We just want something looking down as best we can to the top of the bridge.
Okay. Great.
No need to hang from the rafters.
All about safety first, right?
That's it.
All right. Looks like that is it for questions. We'll hang here for just another minute or two if anyone else wants to submit a question to the chat. And I'll also remind our audience again that John has graciously volunteered to answer your questions. So if things come up after this presentation and you think of a specific question you want to ask, please do not hesitate to reach out to him with those questions. So his information was on this previous slide. So you can send him an email at john@paruki.org. And then again, the recording for this presentation will be up on our website tomorrow. You can go to aisc.org/SSBC webinars. So this should be a good resource. If you can't remember exactly what was said about a particular thing, you can go back and watch it. And there's also PDF handouts of the slides that we talked about today. So you can find those there. Those are available right now. Let's see. Okay, another question did come in the meantime. So the next question is, since deflection is not a criteria for ranking bridges, what will be the criteria for determining the winners?
Well, the formulas are included in the Complete from Campus guide, how we'll be using the data that we then can retrieve and how that affects the overall. So if you want to refer to that, it'll tell you it's essentially time, penalties, weight of the bridge. It's essentially the three items that we can measure. The lateral deflection is just a pass-fail, so we really don't measure that. And as we mentioned before, vertical testing is a pass-fail as well. So that formula you're asking about is in the Compete from Campus guide.
Okay. Yep, so that is a little bit different than previous years.
Yes.
Let's see. Next question is participating as a judge worth any PDHs, so those professional development hours? So AISC will not be offering any certificates, but you could self-report as your state allows. So you can check with what the requirements are in your state. Next question is, should all video recordings during construction be submitted as a single file, or are multiple files permitted? And I'll go ahead and take that question. The answer is that multiple files are permitted. So there will be a submission form for the Compete from Campus, so that will go live tomorrow. So students will have access to that, and they need to submit their submissions by April 1st. And within that submission form, there are going to be links for the students to post their YouTube video for construction, for lateral loading, and for vertical loading. So multiple files are permitted. And we're just looking for links, not the actual video recording file. Let's see. Any other questions? In the meantime, I'll just remind everyone too that you can visit aisc.org/SSBC for all of this information, specifically the rules and clarifications. So John mentioned those clarifications and how you can check those lists. We do encourage you to review the clarifications as close to the competition as possible, since there could be some last minute submissions. And so we post those as they come in. So the questions come in, the rules committee reviews them and posts responses. So we encourage you to check that out before you do the actual judging of your respective competition. Another question is, do we have to register as judges on any website? And the answer is no. We collected the head judge information from the teams when they confirmed their participation, just so that we could get a hold of you and let you know about this webinar. We're not requiring any additional registration. The teams will need to submit the judge information with the judging form as part of their submission, but you as a volunteer are not required to register in any way. Let's see. John and Javier, do you have anything else to add before we end things for today?
No, just to reiterate what you said, if any type of question at all, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and I'll get back to you as quick as I can with an answer or some guidance or feedback.
Be safe, stick to the rules, have fun.
All right. Well, I think that finishes everything up. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of our judges who have graciously volunteered their time. We really appreciate you giving of your time to help these teams still be able to compete this year. We know it is a different format. It's a little bit different than we normally do, but we couldn't make that happen without your time and effort. So we really appreciate that. And then I'd just like to say thank you one more time to John Perucchi and Javier Moncada for giving us insight into this Compete from Campus option. So again, everyone, feel free to reach out with any questions, and best of luck to you and the competing teams. Have a great day.